Hello.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the At the Table service of Western Boulevard Presbyterian Church. We're located at 4900 Kaplan Drive in Raleigh. If you are able to join us in person someday, our morning service starts at 10:30, but we're always here at 5 o'clock, almost always here at 5 o'clock. On Sunday afternoons, you can join us virtually. It's a sunny day. It's still a little cool. We are one Sunday after Easter. And boy, it seems like Easter was a long time ago already. Kind of crazy. So let me welcome you and let us begin. I'm going to share my screen here. I have practiced this. You may recall the last time I did this service, I was having a lot of trouble with this. So we'll see if I do better this time.
Joe,
Yes.
you sound splendid.
Well, thank you.
Got a very nice microphone. You're giving me your Casey Kasem voice.
And we're old enough to know who that was. Okay, so let's begin with our call to worship. Blessed are those who come in the name of the Lord. Do the highest. Open your ears to hear the word of the Lord. We are blessed to receive the word of our God. Let us listen and respond with joy. Joyfully we praise our God. Van, would you like to introduce our opening song?
Well, our opening song is titled How Great is Our God? We've got our fantastic praise team.
Very good. Well, here we go. Hopefully you will be able to hear this. Again, I practiced this, but we'll see.
I think it's on mute.
Brian, you feel like you win.
It's on mute, Joe.
Okay. Becky, did you hear anything?
It was really garbled. Can you start it over too, though?
Yeah, I can.
I can hear nothing. So whatever you did before is not working now.
All right. Well, hang on a minute here. I will take suggestions.
Not for me, you won't. You know, I would never figure it out.
Do you have the feature that says share audio as well?
There was nothing that said share audio. It was just screen. Let's see. Advanced sharing options. That's only how many people can share at once.
It worked so beautifully when he was testing it.
That's always the way it is.
Indeed, it's like taking your car into the mechanic. I wonder what happens if I turn my volume up and you hear it through my speaker.
I don't think that'll work because you have to share audio.
You won't, while I'm doing a share screen, you can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes,
see
that's
what
true.
let's see what happens. It may or may not work.
Oh, it's amazing.
Not happening. Dan, you might have to do a solo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
But we can't hear the song.
All right. Let me do a verse of this song. A cappella. So this is written by Chris Tomlin, and our praise team was singing How Great Is Our God. And first verse is the splendor of the King, clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, trembles at his voice. How great is our God! Sing with me, how great is our God! And all will sing, how great is our God.
Thank you, Van. Ah, well, I am concerned because a couple of the things I have in the message are videos with sound. I don't know that that's going to work. Um, I have no idea where to even try anything different.
I'm at a loss myself. Let's see. At the top of the screen,
Resume record. Okay, well, we just heard the full version, but I enjoyed Van Anthony's a cappella version too. So thank you, Van. I do have a couple of announcements to make. One is we're going to continue to um, do this service on Zoom, and next Sunday, Frank will be back. He is currently on vacation in Indiana. One of the occasions of this week is he's going to see the eclipse. We will see kind of some eclipse, not to the extent that he and his family will see it. So he's with family. And typically on the first Sunday of the month, we have communion in both this service and our morning service. But in this, at the table service, we will have communion next week. Does anyone else have any announcements they'd like to make? Okay, well, let's go back to the New Testament lesson. Now, if any of you opened up the order of worship, you will see that the New Testament lesson is Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 to 46. Any of you who know that I'm involved with the Matthew 25 initiative of our church will get very tired of this passage. In fact, you may end up memorizing this passage. So instead of us reading it, I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time. Maybe.
When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, and fed thee? Or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in? Or naked, and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? And the king shall answer, and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Then shall he also say to them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in. Naked, and ye clothed me not. Sick, and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal.
Okay. So, my message today is about how Western Boulevard Presbyterian Church is responding to the call of Jesus in Matthew 25. And there are a lot of resources that are going to help us do that. Obviously, we have to do the work, but we don't have to do it from scratch. So I'm going to play another video to give you a little introduction and to maybe make you excited.
Greetings, friends. I am Diane Moffett, President and Executive Director of the Presbyterian Mission Agency. By now, I hope you have heard about Matthew 25, a sound biblical and theological basis for the Presbyterian Mission Agency's mission work plan, which focuses on building congregational vitality, Dismantling Structural Racism and Eradicating Systemic Poverty. Matthew 25 originated in 2016 when the 222nd General Assembly passed an overture for the Presbyterian Church USA to be a Matthew 25 church. The focus on Matthew 25 was underscored again in the General Assemblies of 2018 and 2020. In Matthew 25, particularly verses 31 to 46, the story of the sheep and goats, Jesus makes clear that what we do matters to God. How we treat the least of these is important. Jesus counts himself among the least of these. He also uses the phrase to speak of his disciples. As disciples, we are called to continue the work Jesus began, speaking truth to power and building a world where people are no longer marginalized. When we engage in the work of proclaiming good news to the poor, sight to the blind, and liberty to the oppressed, we may end up hungry, thirsty, naked, sick, in prison, and in need of welcome. As we work to change systems that cause human suffering, we too are part of the least of these. Matthew 25 reminds us that our work is not in vain. That is why the Presbyterian Mission Agency's focus to build congregational vitality is important. We are called to share the good news of Christ in word and deed. Congregational vitality is the embodiment of that good news in Christian principles and practices that nurtures and leads believers in congregations to actively engage the world, following Jesus and making disciples and doing the work necessary to build God's kingdom. A question to test a congregation's vitality is this: who would miss your church or congregation group besides the people who are now a part of it if you were to stop your ministry? Congregational vitality intersects with the PMA's focus to dismantle structural racism. You may recall when Jesus was asked, "What is the greatest commandment?" He said to love God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and our neighbor as ourselves. Racism is a sin against God and neighbor. Structural racism is the normalization and legitimization of an array of dynamics: historical, cultural, institutional, and interpersonal, that routinely advantages people who are white while producing cumulative and chronic adverse outcomes for Black, Indigenous, people of color. Dismantling structural racism requires committed followers of Jesus Christ to fearlessly apply our faith to advocate and break down the systems, practices, and thinking that underlie discrimination, bias, and prejudice. The third focus of the Presbyterian Mission Agency's work is to eradicate systemic poverty. And of course, this focus also intersects with congregational vitality and racism. Systemic poverty is a lack of material and social capital to ensure basic well-being. It's a human construct, just as racism is, designed to exploit people through laws, policies, practices, and an array of dynamics that lead to the perpetuation of an impoverished status. Systemic poverty requires that we do more than offer a compassionate response to people who are poor. We must address the root causes of poverty by acting on our beliefs and working to change laws, policies, plans, and structures in our society that perpetuate economic exploitation of people who are poor.
Okay, so that was Dr. Moffett, who every time I hear her, I am totally impressed. She is an amazing speaker, but her messages are always wonderful. So our church decided, and I wish I had the date, I can't remember, but I think it was about a year and a few months ago that we were going to be a Matthew 25 church. New Hope Presbytery is a Matthew 25 presbytery. And after we did that, we agreed that congregational vitality would be the first pillar that we would address, and the session approved that. As Dr. Moffat said, you can't look at one of the pillars without intersecting with the others, but that's where we decided we would start. And this past January, churches from all over the PCUSA sent people to Atlanta for the very first Matthew 25 Summit. I was delighted to be the representative from our church and went down with, I think it was about 17 other people from New Hope Presbytery. There were 300 people completely sold out, plus more people online for the session, which lasted, if I remember right, about 3 days. And coming out of that, I have another video that shows a little bit what happened there. About 20 seconds in, you will see the proof that, in fact, I was there.
On behalf of the Presbyterian Mission Agency, I welcome you to this first historic, in-person Matthew 25 Summit.
It was the work of the General Assembly to name what we are called to be doing and all of the work that we're doing. And so I thank those who laid groundwork. I thank those who plant seeds. And I thank you for embodying what God is up to right here, right now.
But Jesus, this North African Palestinian Jew, born into a community often rendered invisible, skillfully confronts the disciples' blindness. They are baffled by Jesus, the King, Son of Man, identifying himself with the social and economic poor, as Warren Carter says. And his brilliance unfolds in connecting the entire human experience, positioning himself within the community of invisible. Jesus asserts, what you do to the least of these members of my family, you did to me.
As a people, too often we believe that we can claim to be Christian just by going to church on Sunday, rather than dedicating ourselves to the issues that Jesus cared most about every day of the week. Given the scale of poverty, of racism, of inequality, their structural causes today, our nation falls short of an accurate diagnosis, let alone a prescription for the cure.
For mercy, hoping for peace on earth. Come, you carrying questions, all you who've been so hurt. Come as you are, come you weary, come and lay your burdens down. Come as you are, bring your hopes, bring your doubts and your scars. Come as you are.
Churches can and should be busy places. Christians frequently point to the number of congregational activities as an indicator of ministry success. At one level, the presence of an array of worship services, youth group outings, Bible study meetings, short-term mission trips, reading groups, and committees is certainly a sign of a vibrant congregation. But at another level, churches working toward racial justice fall short when they equate their congregational activities with concrete civic action.
We need to celebrate the resilience of the people. You know, 400 years of settler colonialism against the native people, and the native people are still there fighting. And they are trying to keep their culture. 400 years of slavery, And the African American people are still there, fighting, resilient. 100 years of a war against Palestine, from Balfour Declaration until today, and we are resilient. We are still there, fighting for our rights.
He had dreams. It's beautiful when we allow God to dream in us, when we are open enough to use imagination and allow God, and quiet enough to allow God to deposit within us that which God would want us to know.
Okay, so I come back to Western Boulevard. Where do we go from here? Well, there's several things that have been happening. You will recall that over the summer, last spring and summer, our church held some listening sessions where we talked about, what people thought we might do. What things should we be addressing? How should we use our property? How should we work in our community? So I think there were like three or four listening sessions, and information was gathered at all those, and it's been compiled. And there's been discussion at session about needing a capital campaign to address some of those issues. And then suddenly a couple of things happened, and we hit the pause button that said, well, wait a minute. What is it that we really want to be? What is our vision as a church? And then that threw it right back to how do we respond to the Matthew 25 initiative? So the first thing that we want to do is figure out who are these least of these that Jesus was talking about. The good news is that Jesus gave us a list right in Matthew 25. People who are hungry or thirsty, who don't have adequate clothing, who need shelter or better shelter, who need health care because they're sick or will get sick because they're not in a good place, incarcerated people and those who are suffering injustice, strangers, people who need a friend or a community to help them. So Jesus told us who they were. Where are they? Well, if you look at Western Boulevard as the center of where we're talking from, there are people in our own congregation who have some of these needs. They may not speak up. They may be very private about some of the issues they're wrestling with, but we have some folks in our own congregation, and we certainly have people in the community around our church. When you go down and you look at the apartments in what is it called, Kentwood Village, and you go up across Western Boulevard into Historic Method, there are people who are, by any stretch of the imagination, poor. And they certainly are people who suffer from racism. And in some of those areas, we're not engaged, even though we are and believe, and in many ways are, a vibrant, engaged church community. But there are places close by to us where we're not engaged. And especially if you were to look then a little bit broader circle, our city of Raleigh and Wake County, there are lots and lots of people who fit the criteria of the least of these. And then, if you want to go beyond that, looking in our state, our country, around the world, they're everywhere. We can't possibly, as one church, fix this problem, but we can contribute to it. And, the closer in those circles are, I think the more we can have an impact. Doesn't mean that we ignore the others, because we, fortunately, are part of a connectional church. And so we can contribute, and if others like us contribute, we have the resources as the Presbyterian Church USA to address some of the areas that are farther from us. And in fact, being on the mission committee, I know that we do directly have some impact in the larger part of the world. So, how do we find out what they really need as opposed to what we think they need? Well, certainly for our own members and for our local community, we should ask them. We should get out, and instead of saying, hey, we're a welcoming church, our doors are open, come on in, we'd be happy to have you join us. We need to turn that around and say, let's go where these folks are and engage with them. And over a longer period of time, let's get to know our neighbors and then understand what it is that we can do to be helpful to them, to help them address the issues of systemic poverty, systemic racism that they have to live with. In the larger area, again, we don't have to do it by ourselves. And in fact, even in the local community, there are lots of other organizations that we need to engage with. There are churches. We have the New Hope Presbytery. We have lots of other Presbyterian churches in the Raleigh area. We don't have to stop at Presbyterian churches. We can just go a few blocks in any direction, and there are plenty of other churches that are living in the same community who have the same view of the local community. And if we work together, we can have a greater impact as long as we're talking with each other and truly understand what it is that our community needs. We don't have to start from scratch. We don't have to do it alone. There are plenty of other organizations that we can collaborate with. And then, because we do live in a connectional church, as I said before, as long as we can support through Presbyterian USA, we can have an impact in our country and around the world. So, how should we respond? Well, I mentioned that we are a Matthew 25 church, and after the listening sessions and talking about a capital campaign to start to do some things that we thought were important, session decided that we really need to set a vision for what our church should be and how we should use the resources that we have. We have a wonderful physical plant. We have acreage that is not really used fully. We have lots of people with creative skill sets. We have money. We have all kinds of resources. So we need to have a vision of where we want to go so that we don't end up just going down some path that sounded exciting to our members and then turns out to be a roadblock to something else that would better serve the community. So with the authorization of our session, we have created a vision task force, and it's a group of 8 people, 2 of whom are here. Larry Shelton and I are going to be the leaders on the task force. Hang on a sec. I will tell you who the other 6 people are. We tried to take people who were a cross section of our church, and that means newer to the church, older to the church, younger, older. I guess we got a couple of the older ones here. Male, female. So the other members of the church who are part of the task force, and the task force has not even had our first meeting. Our first meeting is this Wednesday at 7:45 at 6. But the other members are Gracie Vaughn, Laura Zambanini, Verna Wentz, Mac Winslow, Casey Vaughn, and Sandy and me. Frank will sit in on the task force, and we have other resources available. I mentioned that New Hope Presbytery is a Presbyterian, a Matthew 25 Presbytery, and they have resources. And in fact, Ed Johnson, who works for New Hope Presbytery, has volunteered to be a specific resource for us whenever we want to call on him to make sure that we're taking advantage of things that the presbytery is doing. So over the next 2 to 4 months, we will be asking the question in the community. We will be talking with community leaders, community members, other organizations that are part of the community to find out what they're doing and how they perceive the community. We'll be talking to institutions like schools. I mentioned churches, businesses. Anybody who is part of our community is fair game for us to talk to understand the community needs. And we will be doing a lot of praying. We'll try to figure out with whom we can collaborate, and we will try to discern what God thinks our vision would be to serve him best. And then we will draft a vision document that we give to session, because it's session that will determine the next steps for us to partner, to fund, and to implement. So that's how Western Boulevard is responding to Matthew 25 at this point. I don't know where this will take us, but there are so many things that we're already kicking around. We could, I'll just throw a couple out here that I know are going to be considered. We could get really bold and put affordable housing on our own property. We could be really bold and turn part of our facilities into a community center. We could have a full service food pantry. We could have vehicles that are available in the community for us to take people to healthcare appointments and to bring them to church if they want to, or take them shopping. There are lots of things that we could do, but we don't want to commit to any of them until we understand what the community really needs and what the priorities are, because we can't do everything. And if some of those things are being handled by other organizations, perhaps we can assist them instead of starting from scratch. So what should you do? Well, I know what Sandy's going to do because I've roped her in to be on this committee with me. But I think it would be helpful if each of us thought about the community and what its needs are, our perceptions of those needs. I think it would be terrific if each of us could be creative about how we might respond. And we will be doing some interim reporting of what we're doing. So you'll have an idea of what we're learning. And, be creative. There is absolutely no limit on what we can think about. If there are organizations that you're aware of that we should be talking with who serve the community, let us know so that we can make sure that we're meeting with them and understand how they're working in the community as well. We will be meeting with organizations in our own church to understand what they're doing, because they will have a view. It may be a specific view in the community based on what their own activities are. And if you're in one of those groups, if you're in one of the committees that we sit down with, contribute, think about it, be prepared when we get together, and be bold. And then I would ask you, I mean, this is huge. We need your prayer. We need you to support us that way as well. But we are excited. I think this will be an amazing activity for us. Talk about congregational vitality. Just going through this process will help us become a more vital congregation. So that's what's happening with Matthew 25 and the Vision Task Force. And at this point, I would like us to say together what we believe. And I've taken this from the Presbyterian Mission Agency's brief statement of faith. We are certain that Jesus lives. He lives as God with us, touching all of human life with the presence of God. He lives as one of us with God, because he shares our humanity and has bound us to himself in love. We have an advocate in the innermost life of God. We declare that Jesus is Lord. His resurrection is a decisive victory over the powers that deform and destroy human life. His lordship is hidden. The world appears to be dominated by people and systems that do not acknowledge his rule. But his lordship is real. It demands our loyalty and sets us free from the fear of all lesser lords who threaten us. We maintain that ultimate sovereignty now belongs to Jesus Christ in every sphere of life. Jesus is Lord. He has been Lord from the beginning. He will be Lord at the end. Even now, he is Lord. So, do we have joys and concerns that we would like to share? In morning service today, it was awfully quiet. We had a guest pastor and nobody spoke up. We have anything that people would like to share?
Yes. I would like to ask it, and I didn't ask his permission, but I think we should be praying for Louis Alexander. He has been diagnosed with wet macular degeneration, and his vision is not going to evidently get better. And he described it to me as everything is a blur. And he has been such a gift to the Western Boulevard congregation. We would not have that elevator if it had not been for his dogged determination. And I just would ask for prayers that he find peace, and if there's a miracle to be had, that enough vision would be restored, that he would be feeling more comfortable about the whole situation.
Thank you.
I'd like for us to pray for the people in Gaza. I think the whole situation over there is getting dire and people are starving. And it was interesting. We went to the Palestinian event downtown in Moore Square, and they said they hadn't been able to make much progress with a ceasefire with Congress and with everything else. But finally, when 6 or 7 white people were killed from the World Food Kitchen, that it got more attention. So that was an interesting statement about our racism, even though 30,000 people have been killed, Palestinians. But I mean, they were thankful that there's some progress on a ceasefire and on not sending more money to Israel to kill more people. But it was also a statement on racism.
Thanks, Cindy. Other joys or concerns? We were talking before the service actually got started about my sister. She continues to decline. Becky is going to go to Pennsylvania to be with my sister's only daughter, who has a young baby and is struggling there and not able to get any help from her mom, my sister. And we actually don't know how much longer Peggy will live. So would ask for peace and comfort to her husband, Bob, and to Peggy. Then, as the term starts showing an end, do you have any prayer requests for you or your students?
Just in general, we will always be grateful for your prayers. Nothing specific. Maybe my students would probably need further prayer, and so they can further get through this semester successfully. Not necessarily tongue in cheek, but I'm always in need of more prayer for patience. They're growing real thin here lately, but everything is good, and I count it all joy that my family's doing well and everybody's thriving.
Good. Well, a little tongue in cheek, but I could use a little prayer on Wednesday. In addition to the task force having its first meeting in the evening, I will be at Athens Drive High School in the morning, participating in a track meet, not as a spectator, not as a judge, but as a participant. We'll be running the mile, and then
You better run on, Joe.
Yes, what is really hilarious is I will also be running the 200-meter dash. It's all relative.
Wow. And you want to do this?
I signed up, yes. Okay, well, let us pray. God, you are so good to us. We know we can come to you, and even when we don't come to you, you come to us. We have shared some things that we want to lift to you. Some of our brothers and sisters who are struggling with health issues. Some of our brothers and sisters who live in the midst of war and are being just crushed. People who are suffering from racism, from poverty all around the world. Especially we look at the people of Gaza. Oh, Lord, you know how to make this end. Sometimes I don't know that we do. So we would ask that you touch those who can make the decisions to stop that, so that we can then turn our attention to helping families who are broken and people who are desperate to rebuild their lives. We ask that you give direction to the Vision Task Force. Be with them, encourage us. Help us to see what you already know, the needs of our community, and how, as a church, we can respond to those in a way that will please you. And among all those other things, we would like then to petition you through the words of the prayer that your Son Jesus taught us, saying together, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Van, would you like to introduce this fantastic trio again?
Yes, I like that. Our praise trio will sing I Need You to Survive, written by Hezekiah Walker. And I think we recorded this several months ago, and I think this was a appropriate message and or discussion to present this piece.
Yes.
I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I pray for you. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me, I need you to survive.
Okay, thank you, Van. Well, folks, that's the end of our service. Thank you for joining us. I hope you have a blessed week. We'll welcome Frank back. Somebody needs to tell Frank that we have moved the bar. This service lasted an hour, including technical issues. All right. Have a great week, folks.
Thanks, Joe. Have a good week.
Thanks a lot, Vanna.
Thank you
ended the
Joe,
recording.
for leading us.
Bye.